Hello, and welcome to Attached Together, the podcast where we explore attachment theory and what it really means in practice for counsellors, psychotherapists, and psychologists. The podcast is created by the team at Optima, who deliver the Level 5 and Level 7 diplomas in attachment-based psychotherapy. It's a space designed to help you deepen your understanding, reflect on your clinical work, and stay connected to the heart of attachment-informed practice. I'm Kiah, a mum of two little ones, aged 3 and 1. I edit the podcast and work alongside Darren and the team at Optima. After listening back to all of the previous episodes, I'll be honest, I'm concerned. Darren, can you help me make sense of all of this?
So why don't we start with the fact that actually you don't need to worry and you can get it wrong more than you get it right. So Winnicott spoke about the good enough mother. This isn't quite what he meant, but do you know what? It's good enough for me, so I'm going to stick with it. Unlike being an ordinary parent, whereby you just go and copulate and then 9 months later a baby springs out because it's that simple. When you're a foster carer, you have to go on quite a bit of training before you're even approved to be a foster carer. And I remember on that training, so it's called Skills to Foster or Foundations to Foster, and they mention the thirds of getting it right and wrong. So you, as a parent, you're looking at getting it right about a third of the time, and meeting the child's needs. A third of the time you can just get it wrong. And actually, that's just one of those things. And what we're building there is resilience in the child. And then the other third of the time, you're getting it wrong, but then you're going back and making it right and repairing it. And if you think of parenting in those thirds, you will have raised quite a well-adjusted, well-attached child. It's that simple.
And do you know what? That is such a wonderful way to think about parenting, because when you listen to a lot of what we talk about on the podcast, it's all very much focused on getting it right all of the time. It's almost how it feels. And it can be quite discouraging when you're concerned that you're not getting it right all of the time, but actually to hear that you are building resilience when you're getting it wrong, and there is a point where actually a third of the time, if you are getting it wrong, you're going back and correcting it, and then obviously if you're getting it right a third of the time, and then that's brilliant. But it's the third of where you're getting it wrong and going back and correcting it is really where what we talk about is impactful, I think.
Mm.
So
And I
yeah,
think,
that's really, really interesting, and actually such a wonderful thing to think as a parent. Do you know what? I've got the authority to get it wrong, and everyone gets it wrong.
but not only that, you can get it wrong twice as much as you get it right.
Oh, and I think most parents feel like that probably 90% of the time.
Oh.
But yeah, I think the sometimes it can be quite daunting as a parent, and I have no learning in any of this. And most of our listeners will have some learning. However, they will also be parents themselves, and trying to analyze your own parenting is far different than analyzing someone else's parenting. So you might be anyone could be sat there thinking, this is heavy. And I've got, anyone with young kids, particularly at the moment, that's maybe listening to our podcast could feel a little bit overwhelmed by the information that they're being given.
And if you're going to analyze anyone's parenting, if I were to look at this through the eyes of attachment, I'd analyze your parents' parenting. And then what you tend to find is you'll fall into one of two camps. You'll either think, I'm going to copy them completely, or much of what they did. I like the way they raised me. Or you're going to think, actually, no, I'm going to do it completely opposite. And sometimes we then overcorrect and we can go too far the other way, and the pendulum just swings between. So if you can take the time to really investigate, well, what was it that I think did go well within parenting, and then what was it that didn't? And then kind of apply some of those lessons through the filter of 2026. So when I was a child, smartphones weren't even a thing.
Mm.
I mean, I think they came in after I was even married. So the whole idea of online dating and an online world and a profile, it's completely not known to me at all. I have no ability to understand quite what the online world means to the children that I'm raising from the point of view of how I was parented. So I need to be very open-minded in making my judgments and then making my decisions based on what happened in the past.
Yeah.
However, actually, were you a family that did things together, or were you a family that did things separately?
Mm.
And as an adult, do you want to either replicate or do the opposite? Now, for some people, they might feel like, actually, I found my family really stifling. We did everything together. And I want to allow my children to have more independence. Or you might think, oh, it's brilliant. We did stuff together and I felt like I really belonged. Or on flip side of that, you might think it was brilliant. I was really able to like develop my independence. Or you might think, I was left on my own too much and I missed out on having a family. So there's no right or wrong in any of this. But if you can sit and look at what you feel like you benefited from and what maybe you lacked in your own childhood, that's going to give you a pretty good understanding of what's going to be driving you. And it's about making the unconscious conscious so that you can then make a informed decision.
Hmm.
So if your patterns play out in terms of, I don't know, maybe you were a child who didn't really have their needs met in the moment, and so you've developed quite an undercurrent of avoidance within the way you operate. Um, well, actually, if you're really aware that you're an avoidant person, then maybe you're going to have to go over and above to work against that to meet your child's needs. Um, in certain moments, when the baby's really crying, you might feel like, well, I just want to walk out of the room and leave it to someone else. Actually, maybe you need to kind of fight against that urge and stay in the room and hold the baby and help them soothe.
Well, that's really interesting to put it in that perspective of when the baby's crying, what is your first reaction? Because I think for me as well, what's been really interesting listening to all the previous episodes of the podcast is trying to figure out, I wonder what maybe my attachment style is. And I know that that is something that we explore in our training that we provide. But obviously, as someone that is not trained, it's very interesting to try and understand it.
I think, and it's interesting you say about you'd love to know what your attachment style is, or to kind of label that. And when I think about the course that we deliver at Optima, so we're looking at a level 5. So we are training people who are already qualified counsellors and psychotherapists in all modalities. So the brilliant thing about attachment-based psychotherapy is that it can blend with CBT just as well as it can with person-centered or wherever it is you're coming from, that it can blend, and it's a toolbox and an understanding. Now, if you are already a qualified counsellor or psychotherapist, you might expect that you would know your attachment style because you'd have looked at that already. Actually, what's really evident every single year this course is taught is that people arrive on that course believing they're one thing and they leave seeing it very differently than how they arrived. So actually, your understanding of your own attachment can vary and change even with qualified professionals. So it is the fascinating part of the course, and the course, I guess, has I really like it because there's 2 prongs to every single lesson. There's the what am I learning in theory that I can apply to my clients, and what am I learning about myself and my own life. And that would be why we do 2 presentations. One is a presentation on how you've used the work in a case study with a client, and the other presentation is you're looking at your own life through an attachment focus. So there's very much those 2 prongs to the year of training.
What a great course. What a great way to set you up into practice.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's draw back to technology. We were very much going down that route to talk about technology, and I think for me, I also did not grow up with readily available technology, smartphones. I was just on the cusp of before those things started to become readily available. I think my first phone was a Nokia. But I have then grown up with technology, so I feel like I am well equipped to understand how technology can impact a childhood. I had extremely strict views on screen time, and I think that's because it had been imposed on me. There's a lot of on social media, there's a lot of guilt around children shouldn't be plonked in front of a television screen, no screen time before the age of 1, and I took that really seriously. My first child had absolutely categorically zero screen time until she was 1 years old.
Mm.
And then even when she turned 1 year old, we very much focused on very calming programs. And as she's gotten older, so she's just over 3 now, and she, she has her favorite programs that she likes to watch, and she is a very busy child. She goes to preschool, so she is all day playing and is all day busy, no screen time whatsoever. And when she gets home, she can sometimes be, very tired. She just wants to chill out. And actually, me, myself, when I just want to chill out, I sit and watch an hour or so of television. And I decided that actually it didn't do me any harm, which is probably not the right mentality to have, but it is the mentality that I sort of took, that actually I used to watch telly when I was a kid and it didn't do me any harm. I'm fine. And actually she does, she doesn't, she doesn't sit and watch television all day long because that's ridiculous, and she would even get bored of that. But there are evenings where she will come home and she will watch television. And now my second, because she's grown up with a TV screen on, and if my eldest one is watching television, the littler one may well be in the room with the television on. She couldn't care less about the television being on, and she will just play and ignore what's on the television. Doesn't care. Doesn't it couldn't distract her, even if I wanted it to. It couldn't distract her. And now I think, why did I put so much pressure on myself to not allow any screen time because of all the outside noise, that actually, had I maybe just been a little bit more relaxed about it, I wouldn't have felt such guilt when I did put her in front of the television. Do you see where I'm going?
See, now that guilt word is really interesting, isn't it? And immediately my mind goes to, okay, so there's an element of you that has taken other people's opinions, and at first you'd given those a higher authority than your own instinct,
Mm.
maybe. So what I think I'm hearing from you is actually you now are relaxing into what your own opinion is, which is, a bit of TV in the mix of the whole day of being busy and occupied isn't the end of the world. And rather than listening to the voices that say no TV at all, actually you're learning to listen to your own internal voice on that. So if I were to look at that, that's the exact opposite of being avoidant. Actually, that seems really that ambivalent nature of, I need to make sure that I'm getting it right by everyone else's standards for me to know that I'm okay.
Well, I think that's a huge thing for some first-time parents, especially my experience of the mums that I have met. You feel like everyone is trying to be the perfect social media, Instagram mother who's doing it all. Their kids they don't have any no sweets, no chocolate, no television. The kids are always outdoors playing, and that's the image that is pushed in front of you, or from social media to mothers. And particularly when you listen to some of the things that we speak about on the podcast, it does kind of fit with that perfect mother image of, we should constantly be gazing at our child while you're breastfeeding. That's not practical. I've breastfed both of my children. I can't gaze into their eyes every single time I do a feed. Again, I think we talked on one episode about um, going out to dinner, and the parents had put a screen or a phone on for the kid while they were eating, and I've been in that situation 100 times. And again, in my first child's year of life, no TV, no screen. We would sit at that dinner, out for dinner, and it would be completely not enjoyable because either myself or my husband, we didn't get to speak to each other whatsoever because we're focused on entertaining our child, which is wonderful and lovely. But sometimes parents also need a bit of a break, but that break may involve taking the child with them. So I think sometimes for me, what I've listened to on the podcast is um, you've got that perfect mother image, and then you hear some things on the podcast that kind of always back that up, and I think, oh my God, am I doing everything wrong?
Well, we're back to the thirds thing, aren't we? So if every day you allow your child to sit and use a smart device whilst they're eating their dinner, then that is going to have a consequence. That child is going to require a dopamine hit every 2 seconds in order to have a calm and peaceful dinner. Now, if you're only doing that every now and again, then obviously the impact of that is greatly reduced. So it's about striking a balance,
Mm,
remembering the Winnicott's thirds, but also, so I understand what you mean about the gazing with the breastfeeding. However, we, as parents, again, we make choices. And I would say this example extends at any life stage. So I've never breastfed a child, and I never will. But actually, I know the interruption that the smartphone can have on paying attention to a child in the room.
mm,
Um, and I wonder how many people might choose to scroll on social media rather than engage with their child. And actually, although I understand it's not practical to always gaze lovingly at your child for every moment of breastfeeding, actually, I wonder, and I've got no evidence, but I've seen it happen
mm.
whereby people are sat sort of aimlessly scrolling at their phone. Well, that's not essential. And so again, maybe some of the choices that we're making are, okay, in this moment, I'm going to offer my attention to my child. So, um, yeah, like, if I think like of older children, actually, sometimes so play is really important. And I
Mm.
think our children don't always know how to play now. And that's partly because helicoptering parenting is the current in favour method of parenting. So children have less opportunity to learn from other children because parents swoop in at the first sign of any kind of argument or conflict. Um, and or maybe there's a lot of, if you've got like a child that's on their own, like maybe a single one child in a family. So how often are parents getting down on their hands and knees and building Lego with the kids?
Yeah.
And how often are they playing a computer game with them? Because actually the quality of interaction um, on both of those is really essential. It's easy to let a child just sit and play a game on their own, but there's no reason um, that, actually we're not looking at exactly what you have to do to engage with your child. Just engage with your child.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like you say, when it goes back to the thirds and finding a balance, because yes, there is obviously a point where, I lovingly sit and build with my child's magnetic tiles. In fact, I probably get far too into it, and I actually get rather possessive over my towers that I build. However, there are times that I then have to cook dinner. or somewhere in the house needs a clean, and you do need your child to play on their own.
Mm.
I totally agree. You know, if I was to be sat on the sofa scrolling social media while my kids sat playing on the floor on their own, then that's a completely different matter. But again, sometimes some parents need that
That's what I was
five-minute
about to say. Even that, like that, if you can't, for whatever reason, you can't leave your child physically on their own, so you can't then go and have some space on your own. Actually, a mental mind break of 5 minutes.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. We all need that.
Calling a friend or something, engaging with the real world, that can be just as important as actually the time in with the child. But maybe what we can do in those scenarios is set a child up on a task. Actually, most children, once they're up and running in something, they'll happily run with it. So if you can start the colouring in together and you do it side by side, and then you slowly kind of pull back and the child's there doing their own task in their own way. It's these, you can then go and cook the dinner or be in the same room or have a conversation. um, so I don't think anyone should be putting themselves under pressure to do any one thing, but I would like everyone to put themselves under pressure to do everything. Um, and little bits of all sorts, all the time, every
Yeah.
day. Kate Silverton, in her book No Such Thing as Naughty, speaks about um, your brain like a tree that grows and develops, and then the animals within the tree. So she speaks about the fact that we're born with a reptile that knows how to breathe, and it knows it needs to eat, and it can, meets its kind of really basic needs. But then about the age of 1, we start to realize that there's also a baboon in the tree, and that baboon runs around, is free, is keen to bond, keen to play. And then the last animal we notice in the tree is the wise owl. And at any stage of parenting, we're looking to bring online all three parts of that animalistic brain within us. So we've got the reptilian brain that we're born with. Then we're looking at all the upper levels of the brain, as we would refer to them, and bringing them all online. And what we're looking for with like brain development is to create as many links as possible. So the work that you do with your child will help them to engage with the world. And the more they engage with the world, the more links and neural pathways they build. And actually, it's not about building up the separate parts, it's about building up the links between those parts. For example, a child who never develops the wise owl, but they have the reptilian part of their brain that calls out like, oh my God, I'm in danger, I better scurry off. And then the baboon part of their brain, which is like, right, I'm beating my chest and I'm making myself know that I'm not happy. That's when we look at tantrum behavior. Now, some people it's, don't always actually grow out of that behavior. And that might be because they've never been shown and they had time to develop their wise owl. And so within her book, Kate Silverton speaks about the methods that you can bring that owl into action. And that's all through interaction externally to develop that internally. And that can come in any number of ways, but it just needs to come in.
That sounds like a great book and definitely one that should be read.
Well, and the brilliant thing about that book is there's a second one called Still No Such Thing as Naughty. And in each book, she does reflect on her own children in that life stage. So Still No Such Thing as Naughty is based on primary school age children from that kind of 5 to 11. Her children are growing up even beyond that now. So I'm hoping that there'll soon be a teen version of that book, which I think could be the greatest one within the set. If it were to come out, because actually you're looking at a huge amount of brain pruning, brain changing, and to understand how that part of life can be navigated through her was going to say, through her accessible definitions with the animals, it would be really useful for many parents.
So if we're looking at tips of how to engage all three parts of the brain, we suggest go and have a read of There's No Such Thing as Naughty.
Yeah, and engaging, it just engage within your child's life. You know, get messy, get down on your hands and knees, go out, jump in puddles together, have a laugh together. You know, all those. Find the child within yourself and have fun with your child.
One of my favourite memories with my eldest is it'd been a lovely sunny day, and we'd just come in because the weather looked like it was going to change, and it just absolutely torrentially poured it down. And my eldest really, really wanted to go back in the garden. And I thought to myself, why not? You know the smell of rain on the
Ugh,
ground when it has been really sunny and then it rains, and it's that real smell it's
that
just so unique.
petrichor smell.
Yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we went out and we actually danced in the rain, and I thought, "This is so cheesy." And if I saw myself probably through a window, I thought, "What a crazy person." But it is one of my absolute all-time favorite memories of being a parent, because I was just the biggest kid with my child who was just having the best time. And I don't even know if she remembers. She may not, but I think that's one that will stick with me, and I say it's just making it fun.
Yeah, and you say around, you don't know if she remembers. Well, there's two ways of remembering. There's remembering a memory, a story. Maybe for someone who's visual, they can literally picture back to that moment. But there's also that somatic memory of just knowing that you're at one or you're at ease within your own body. And all of those moments are what builds up to create a body that feels at ease and connected with the world, who feels safe, who know that they have a secure base. And it
Mm.
sounds to me like your child knows, you know, if there's fun to be had, you can be there to provide it. And that's really lovely. Even if she doesn't know that memory, she'll have that sense of safety and fun with you. And all those micro moments all build up, and that's what creates a safe, secure child.
Yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? All the micro moments, because things that maybe don't seem like big moments to you, as you say, resonate within the child. So, yeah, and you know, I have my fair share of moments where I don't provide the fun and I don't cope as well as I, would have liked to. And I do reflect back on those moments and I think, oh, I wish I had done it differently in the time. But at the time your brain is offline, and you're potentially in some form of survival mode, particularly after potentially second child is born. For mothers, hormones are here, there and everywhere, and
Mm.
you don't control your emotions as you would always wish. So there is always that concern, and it's not just when you've had a second child. It can happen to anybody that has got a singular child as well. You do think back to moments where you think, I really wish I'd handled that differently. And I think that for me is sometimes where I become concerned, where I'm like, did I, in that, looking at the thirds, I did something right, I've done something wrong, and I've done something when I'm correcting it. Am I correcting it in the right way?
I have two answers for this, because actually, how amazing to have that critical, reflective time and to think, okay, what worked well, what didn't. And when I think about my career as a foster carer, that's essential, that you sit and you unpick and you take ownership. But what I would encourage people to do is to do that in a really non-judgmental, kind way. And so maybe when you're having that conversation with yourself or someone else, really consider what would you reply to your best friend with, so that you, just to make sure you're not being overly critical of yourself, because in its own way that will then cause further doubt next time. Actually, you need to empower yourself that it's okay that that wasn't great. I'm, you know, what would I do differently next time so that I can feel better about it? But rather than this, oh God, I'm really bad, I can't trust myself. Actually, it sounds to me like you can. We all have these moments. And I think being aware of your own attachment drivers. So, and maybe you've got a disorganized attachment, and actually, some days you're going to feel very close and capable, and then other days you're going to feel very distant from your child. So think about the support network that you have around you to help you unpick those moments, and to help you understand what's going on for you, what your drivers are. But just because you operate in a certain way doesn't mean your child will. And I think
Mm.
it's really worth remembering.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I personally, as as a parent, I'm in a fortunate position. I'm surrounded by people that really know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
So I have got a fortunate position where if I have a dilemma or a difficulty, I do have a network of people that I could reach out to. And hopefully people that are listening have got the same, or if not, they have got some really good therapists in their area.
Well, maybe seek out a parenting group. And
Yeah.
actually, although there's a lot of stuff online that can make us feel rubbish, there's also some places online where we can find our kin and what we need. So be selective over the groups that you join online. But actually, I've seen some really lovely ones. When I first started fostering, I was in like a couple of really lovely support groups for foster carers.
Yeah.
You had people on there who'd been doing it 20 years, and you had people on there who'd been doing it 20 weeks. And you were able to kind of ask those questions, and get an answer, or just seek some reassurance. Or even maybe just have a flick through, and you don't even need to put anything on there. You can see that you're not the only one that feels the way you do. And sometimes that's just enough. It's just
Mm.
enough to feel heard and understood.
Do you think, as somebody who's more informed, Darren, do you think you maybe analyze your parenting a bit more than maybe the usual parent? We're just thinking about listeners that are
Hmm.
wanting to have more attachment information and are also, qualified therapists or counselors. Do you think that those people are more prone to analyzing their own parenting?
I think that could probably work either way. So I think there's that sense of, okay, I've done the analysing, done the work, I've looked internally, I'm fairly confident in who I am and what I have to offer, and maybe where my gaps are, and then what I can work on, and or where I'll seek that external support. And actually, probably, yeah, there may be even less self-reflection in the moments, because actually you're able to understand what's taking place, without overly ruminating. But there's that other side of us that's trained to be reflective, to make the implicit explicit, to understand what's going on. And for families where there's two parents, it can be really useful to sit and have a conversation every now and again just about how things are going. Have a bit of a family audit, what's worked well lately and why. Um, my oldest foster child had additional needs. And so a lot of things we used to just put down to, oh, I think it's that. And so what would work one day wouldn't work another. And then we started fostering children without additional needs. And we were like, oh no, what works one day doesn't work on another. And actually, it's really easy to think that you understand it all and that you have all the answers. And then something will come along and flip that, and you think, oh, I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And being open to that level of self-reflection and external feedback is really important. And the external feedback, be warned of false prophets and all of that, but people have been raising children for many, many years,
Mm.
and there's lots to learn from those people that have done it before. Um, and maybe that's advice that you wouldn't want to take, and maybe it is. The only way you'll know that is to reflect on it internally.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like you say, there are people that have been raising children for many years, far far longer than myself. I am in a very fortunate position where I have both sets of my children's grandparents in very close proximity. And I learn so much from them all the
Mm.
time, constantly. And thinking about your own childhood and then seeing also my children interact with my parents and or my husband's parents, I do think there are things that I will take and there are things that I will leave.
Mm.
But I probably take a far more amount than what I leave, because experience, and I see the I see the results of their parenting. And I must say, my husband, he is a lovely guy, and I think, well, he's obviously been raised in the right way, and well, I don't do too badly myself, and I would say my parents did a pretty decent job their side. So I do, yeah, I do take far more than I probably leave. I feel very fortunate to be in that position. I know, there are many families
Yeah.
that aren't in that position.
I mean, you're fortunate in both ways. You're fortunate in that you have plenty of advice coming, and plenty of stuff that you see modelled in front of you that you copy. And yeah, also fortunate in that you reflect positively on your own upbringing and where you are now. Um, for those that don't necessarily have that level of feedback around them, um, I think that the ABC of behaviour can be really useful for parents. So when you're saying about like, reflect on things, what do we actually mean? What is a good way to reflect? So the ABC kind of gives you a framework for that. So the A is a really rubbish word. It's the antecedent means the cause. What was the cause of the behaviour? Then the B is what's the behaviour you see, and then C is for consequence. What's the consequence? So actually, if you were reflecting back on why does my child keep doing this certain thing that you don't want them to do? Well, might be that they're spitting. So you have a
Mhm.
child that's spitting. Well, actually, um, the behavior is the spitting. Let's look at what's going on before. What was happening before they started spitting? Well, maybe they have a speech impediment, or maybe they have a delayed speech. So we can look at all the reasons that might be that they want to verbally use their mouth, but actually they can't use it in the way that we might want them to. And then the consequence is that they get some relief from spitting, because for whatever reason they can't verbalize what it is they want to say, but they're able to release something. So
Mm.
look at the behavior, and then look at what was happening before, and then look at what the consequence was after. And that gives you a framework to understand your child's inner world.
That's my brain is kind of like popping off thinking, oh god, like so many things. One big thing for me and for many parents that I speak to, in the school playground, at kids clubs, anything like that, it's very much around dinner time. Dinner time always seems to be the main sticking point for parents, where it's just, oh, I hate dinner time. And the amount of parents that I speak to that feel the same, it's really interesting to try and understand what is it about dinner time that is such a challenge,
Mm.
one for parents, but also why do so many children seem to play up at dinner time, and trying to think of the ABCs to that.
So when you say play up, what can you consider behavior?
My child in particular will basically do anything other than sit and eat her dinner at the table. I need a wee wee. I need water. Wants to get up to feed her younger sibling. Anything to avoid eating her own dinner.
Okay.
Um,
So the
and yeah,
behavior is the avoidance of eating.
interesting. But
So,
then why?
okay. This is so we need to go both forwards and backwards. So, what's going on before and what, so she doesn't want to eat. What's the setup? What would she normally be doing before eating? Would she be playing, watching TV?
It could be typically either because obviously dinner is after coming home from a day at preschool, so it
Yeah.
could be sat watching television.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. Or she could be playing. Um, it's actually really any
Okay.
time.
So she's doing something of her choice and her
Oh, yeah,
liking.
more than yes, more than
And then
likely.
when you start dinner time, does the TV go off? Do you move her
Yes.
somewhere
No,
different?
television goes off.
What's your favourite show, Kiah, on telly?
What's my favourite show? Gilmore Girls.
Okay, right. So you're watching Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
Netflix drops a new series. You're halfway through like the last episode of the series because they're normally the best, aren't they? Like the
Okay.
final one. So, and you're a quarter of an hour in, and I just rock up and I turn it off and I drag you to a different room and ask you to do something that wasn't even on your radar. How you gonna feel?
I mean, put out for sure.
Okay, and then yeah, you can see where I'm heading with this.
I absolutely can see where you're heading. And I feel like as a parent, I've tried and tried to do, I'll give her a warning. I'll say, right, dinner time is in 5 minutes. Although my child would have no idea the length of what 5 minutes is. Pause the television and you can watch it tomorrow.
So you need to change the consequence here, Kia. So I wonder how both feasible it would be and how it would go to say, we only watch TV in this house once we've eaten our dinner. Now, I'm not telling you that's what you should
Heavy.
do. I'm just throwing it out there as the most extreme example of actually, if we're looking to change the behavior, then we need to change the consequence and the cause.
And that is the stickler, isn't it? Because and I'm a creature of routine. And I think the moment you said would to change, it's like I know I need to do that, and I in my brain can go, yes, I know I need to do that, but I don't want to.
And that is, if you're in therapy, that would be an amazing place to start to unpick it from that moment.
So I
But
need to go on our therapist directory.
yeah, maybe, yeah, have a look. um, and I'm pleased we're laughing because actually, the, we can over pathologize. We can really. It's about choices, isn't it? And it's just about. But if there's a behaviour that we really don't like, then we need to look at it. And the other thing to consider is when we're raising children as old as yours are, actually, there's a whole load about them that we don't yet know.
Yeah.
So who knows what the drivers are, and understanding them, and sometimes choosing the path of least resistance in one area means that you can then really focus in on another. And I think that's okay.
I'm gonna test it out tonight, Darren. I'm gonna I'm
Excellent.
gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna set her up. She can sit in the kitchen and cook with me, and we'll see how dinner time goes, and I'll report back.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I'll turn my phone off later. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be positive about with regards to attachment and raising
Yeah.
children. And we know more now than we did. I mean, the whole we're learning stuff all the time. I mean, it's only 2 years ago I heard the term epigenetics for the first time, and now there's an awful lot known about that. Maybe that's a podcast episode in its own right. We'll put that one down for
Put that on
series
the
2.
list.
But yeah, there's be open-minded, be reflective, but reflect on yourself as much as your child. I think that would be my takeaway for this.
Yeah. And I think right at the very start, Darren, you hit the nail on the head. I think for any parents out there that are listening, that for me is a really nice way to think about actually I don't need to be perfect 100% of the time. As long as and when maybe getting things wrong, doing the best to try and put them right in the right way.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Darren, for the free therapy session. It's been fantastic. I think it's been really interesting to have a chat and to sort of talk through a couple of examples. I think there's hundreds of things out there that parents are concerned and worried about, that potentially we may talk about on our podcast, that maybe make you feel like you're doing everything wrong, but actually just keeping in mind that you don't have to do it right 100% of the time.
Thank you for having me on to have this conversation today. I'm hoping you're feeling a little bit better. And the reality is that as adults, we sit in our therapy room and sometimes we mention our parents. And in 20 years' time, or 30 or 40 years' time, your children will be sat in a therapist room and they'll be having a chat about you too. And that's just the natural order of life.
Yes, definitely. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Darren.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for listening to our conversation today. We hope that you found it interesting, coming from a parent's point of view. As usual, you can find the CPD certificate link in the show notes, or head over to our website, www.optimahealthservices.co.uk.